All right, well, let me say hello and welcome to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings, where week by week I'll do my best to take a grope in the murkiness and find you some quality trade setups that'll help put a little bit of money in your pocket. It was a really good week of trading, I thought, last week. Some really nice setups, and we took full advantage of that. So if you guys are struggling a little bit with your trading, I'm going to post a link up here on the screen that will take you directly to our live trade room. Either click on that link or cut and paste it, and you can start trading with us right away. Also, before I start talking about some of the setups that we're going to go through here today, don't forget that my new DVD, Rock Solid, where I go over the 3 main trader components it takes to be successful, is now out, and it is free. That's right, you don't even have to pay for it. Just watch it, apply these principles to your trading, and see if they help you out. I'm also going to post that link up on the screen. Either click it or cut and paste it. So let's start talking about the market. And we've got some interesting names that we're going to put on the list because we saw some pretty nice ER runners and we saw some pretty good market activity overall. And I want to kind of go over that and give you an idea of what we might be able to see or what we might be able to come up with as the week progresses. Now let's first start out here with the market, as I always do. And this was just classic technical analysis at its finest. You've had this long run up. And if you go back last week where we were talking about whether or not we would break this range of this 267 area, which it did, and it started to just kind of melt up. We were in this frame where the market was just constantly melting up. And to be honest with you, I really don't prefer that type of market because it robs it of the volatility. But you got to kind of deal with it. Every so often you're going to get those, but they're my least favorite. And it just kind of walked right into the 200-day moving average. You can see this teal line on my screen. And it just got rejected. That was all there was to it. As soon as it hit it, it just come right off of that and pulled right back. So as we settled in Friday at the close, we're right just a shade underneath of the 10 moving average on the daily chart. So let's first talk about what to expect going forward to the upside and then the possible downside. There was a lot of buying here late in the day on Friday. Now that could be attributed to a couple of news reports that there's possibly going to be an end of the government shutdown, and that's going to be finalized on Monday. That could be this, it could not be. Could be just a regular squeeze, it could not be. Who knows? A little spike right there at the end of the day. Something interesting to watch. Now, if the market stays constructive, because even though we had a couple of sell-off days, what it was absent of panic. So if you go back to some of this stuff that was experiencing through Christmas Eve, or the month of December, I should say, you had rallies in the market that immediately got wiped out. So when I say immediately, you had the market taking off, trying to put together a couple of candles, and then all of a sudden it would just get cleaned out in one swoop, and then the new low would make. Then try to build itself back up, and then just get cleaned out again. And then just kept panicking and panicking. You don't have that. You had fades for a couple of days in a row here, but they were very small, very slow, and very low volume. So you're in that point where you're saying, is this going to lead to another correction, or is this just an orderly light volume pullback? Time will tell. But if we hold up well through the early part of the week, I would think there at least by bare minimum that there's another shot at trying to get back up to this 200 moving average, which is right now about, let's just say 274. And make a chance to get to 274. And then if it does push through that, then I believe there's nothing really to stop this thing till you start moving into 280. Okay. So if you stay strong, if this 10 moving average holds, if the dips keep getting bought, if the market's absent of panic and serious news that may detriment it, and it just seems to be business as usual, I would look for this thing to at least try to get back up to that 274 200-day moving average. And it might get rejected up there, might do it all in the same week, who knows. But watch that area. It's a really important area going forward to the upside. Now, if we do start to sell, there are a couple of spots down here to look at. One would be your 20 moving average here on the daily, which is 265. And then possibly down here close to the 50, which would make a little bit more sense. That's 262 area, 261.75, because that is the lows coming from the later part of January. You see, there's a bunch of clustered lows right in this area when the market was trading sideways for the whole week. So I would look to that. I would imagine that barring any unforeseen incident here, the market will stay within that range of the 275 to the upside, the 261. I would think we stay in between this range. Now, there's always the possibility of a trade deal getting announced, which is just going to create this instant reaction to the upside. And if the market happens to be up here, I could easily see it punching through this 200 moving average. But I think for the most case, we're going to stay within those boundaries throughout the week, barring any unforeseen stuff. And if you've traded stocks and you've been trading the market for a while, there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances that happen. So let's start talking about a couple of stock plays. Got some new names outside of the normal Tesla, Apple, all those good ones. I want to go with PAYC. And if this market can stay constructive as it is, I want to take a look at possibly buying this through the earnings high, which was around 178.50. It needs a little bit of work here. I don't particularly like these patterns. I like the way they start the setup, but I like to see them do a little bit of constructive building before I buy a breakout of this sort. But what we've seen here in the recent past is that earnings have just been basically winners for most, not everybody, but for most. I mean, a lot of these companies came out with, less than admirable earnings, and their stocks had still gone higher. So if this thing does continue to press up here towards the 179s, watch it. I think this is a nice breakout look to it. I would like for it to consolidate a couple days. Maybe if it did it like on a Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday, it would be a little bit better. So watch a little of this PAYC. Same thing could be said for Wayfair, because I tell you what, I was all thinking short about Wayfair, and it just never really exploded on the daily. It's just melting up, melting up. It takes one day off this week, and it just keeps getting bought. Now, you got to be concerned a little bit if you're going to trade this. That, well, we got plenty of time before earnings. We can make a lot of trades on this. You got another week or so on that. But it looks like it's going to continue to run up there. You're already just right where it needs to be to clear this resistance, and it's pretty free and clear right now to go to about 127.5 before it starts. Again, it's a little bit short term. I don't want to say overbought. It's not real overbought, but you'd rather have been down here on the breakout at this area right here at 102 rather than up here at 128. But you got to do what you got to do when the setup is there. So this is a pretty interesting setup for a long. Now also has the same type of look. So after today's action on Friday, you're getting a lot of consolidation, especially on these earnings plays. This is another one. And you can see that, it pulled back, it's digested its earnings, and now it's just kind of clustered in this ascending triangle going upwards here. And I think if you break over the highs, the earnings highs, the last couple of days highs, which is roughly $229.50, it's only $1 away, you're going to see a big move out of the stock. Now, it's rangy. It's very rangy. I don't know if it fits everybody's budget here, but, it moves $2 to $3 at a time. I would watch this thing. It is very strong. If the volume comes in on this and you see that break over there, you're probably going to get a bigger look, or a bigger move, I should say. Also, I want to go with TTWO. This one might be ready for a little bit stronger of a move here. It's been beaten down pretty good, 140 down to $100. Their initial reaction to earnings obviously wasn't good because this thing sold off in a gap down. Again, I want to kind of bring back this earnings thing because this has been don't want to say typical. Maybe not. Let's say we've seen a lot of it where stocks have had not favorable reactions to their earnings, and then a day later they either base out and rip or they come back later. Case in point is like this grub. It's just dead in the water. Everybody's selling this thing off. It's crap. Let me open up this top chart up here. It dumps here after earnings, and then all of a sudden, hours after the conference call, this thing just lights it up and starts jamming up here because it's as if everybody made a mistake or something. So we're seeing a lot of that. Let's see if this TTWO fits in there. And then last, a little bit of Facebook, because I think Facebook is now entering an area of importance. This is the earnings low gap here. It's held. This is where this gap is. I got this line right here, 163.30. Let's just say 163. So you're sitting at 163 here. If this is able to hold up at 163, it probably starts to challenge some of this upper area. It's just kind of moving back and forth around its 200-day moving average. Now on the other side of that, if this thing starts to go underneath of that, this might be a short into that gap back down towards the 150s a little bit. I mean, when you start looking at some of the other beta names and how Apple's handled itself after earnings, much different scenario. This one's actually pulling back a little bit and was unable to really press higher after its initial earnings hit. So let's take a look at it. Right now it's just kind of making love sweetly and delicately right there to the 200-day moving average. Needs to kind of move away from that. So I'm going to go over this. PAYC, I think, is a long if it gets through the highs. Wayfair, I think Wayfair could be both sides. It looks like a flag, but if it does break out or there's some euphoria in the morning on Monday or something like that and you see this monstrous gap up, I wouldn't write off shorting that thing just for a trade. Very good example of that, if you guys don't quite understand, is like, sometimes this is what happens. Your plans change. You have an idea and things change. That's what traders have to do. And you get stuff like this iRobot today, where it's just, I mean, these are 5-minute candles. It starts out at the open and doesn't even print a red until like 1 hour hour and 10 minutes. So I don't even know how many this is, like 15, 20 reds in a row or some insane amount like that. It's like, that's just unsustainable throughout the rest of the day. These usually make really dynamic shorts. So, in case that were something like Wayfair or something like these other stocks, TTWO, now they took off like this, and this is how they spent the first part of their day on Monday, I would not rule out shorting them once you started to get some sort of pivot like up here. I think you got to look for that stuff. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you. Let me see if some of this stuff helps you. PAYC, now, TTWO, Facebook. Let's see if any of those turn into solid winners for the week. But as I say, who knows what you're going to get when the week starts? They might all be duds. That's why we wake up every day and look at charts, change our minds, do things, change our stuff, all that kind of good stuff. So if you need help, remember, visit thelincolnlist.com, click on the Trade Room tab, start trading with us right away. Other than that, trade well. I'll talk to everyone next week. Take care.